Events must tie to pipeline. If you use that as your North Star, you're able to go from event execution to business ownership. That is the one metric that whether it's your COO, your CRO, your CMO, or your board, they are not going to deny the fact that if you are tying your event strategy to pipeline, they'll never question any decision you make.
I'm Camille Arnold, and this is Checked In. Epic flagship events, bespoke roadshows, powerful partner plays. For Gainsight, it's all a part of their growth strategy. In this episode, we hear from Emily Wilkes, their Director of Field and Partner Marketing, about how they use a mix of event types to build and accelerate pipeline, strengthen relationships, and drive business impact. You'll hear how their team approaches event design, measurement, and engagement, all with a focus on real results throughout the funnel. This is event-led growth at scale. Let's get checked in with Emily Wilkes. Special, major thank you to Emily Wilkes for leading this session with me and opening up your playbook to share how you and your team are achieving event-led growth for Gainsight. Folks, Emily Wilkes is the Director of Field and Partner Marketing at Gainsight. She is a treasure trove of knowledge. She's one of the brightest minds in marketing who I turn to all the time when I need inspiration or advice and just want to see what best in class looks like. Emily, thank you so much again for joining me today. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me. This is so fun. I'm so honored to be here and speaking with you today. This is going to be fun.
It is going to be fun. I feel like we could talk for hours about this. So let's dive right in. And I would love for you to just start by giving us a little bit of a brief overview of your role at Gainsight, how field marketing and how events in general kind of fit into the company's broader growth strategy.
For sure. So I'm the Director of Field and Partner Marketing at Gainsight. I've been here for 5.5 years, and I have right now a team of 3 field marketers on my team in the United States, and we lead and execute our executive programs, regional events, roadshows, dinners, lunch and learns, roundtables, virtual events, partner activations. So we work tightly with sales to drive sourced pipeline and revenue.
Amazing. So that's the perfect segue. My next question to you is really around how you're measuring success and what specific metrics or KPIs you're looking at and tracking for your events. And then, of course, how do those tie back to the broader business objectives for Gainsight?
For sure. It's all about the data. It's so important. And events are tough because it's always tough to prove ROI on events. And a lot of people, until very recently, relied very heavily on influenced pipeline. So we talked about when we would measure our events, we would talk about the amount of ARR in the room. So the amount of the value of the folks that were in the room. And that's a great metric. But over time, as we've gotten a little more ticked and tied with our reporting, we've learned that we need to focus on literal gold standard on reporting, which is sourced pipeline. So what we need to focus on right now is not just events that are influencing, but directly generating pipeline. So I just ran all the stats. But last year in 2024, which was fiscal year 25 for us, our events at Gainsight generated 20% of our overall marketing pipeline goal, which correlates to $7 million in sourced pipeline. And like I said before, sourced pipeline is the gold standard when it comes to reporting, and especially reporting up to the board. When you're delivering those metrics, they want to see sourced pipeline. That number suggests that our event strategy is super tight, aligned with sales, and focused on high impact activities that meet our buyers at the moment when it matters.
That is absolutely incredible. I feel like when people ask me, like, what's a good benchmark for ROI, anywhere between like 2x, 3x, maybe I would say 4x is like amazing. And you are blowing that out of the water.
We're close to 7x, which is just unreal.
Yeah. What an accomplishment. Okay, so this makes me even more excited to ask you and like dig into like how you're doing that. So can we talk a bit about, the specific programs that your team's executing? You mentioned the virtual stuff, I'm sure you do lots of regional things as well, but break down that current mix of event types a little bit more granularly for us. And any info you can share about like this scale, like how many events you're executing as well would be just, I think, helpful to paint the picture of the input that you are able to put in and then like what that leads to output with that 7x ROI.
Yeah, for sure. So I will say that 7x ROI encompasses all events at Gainsight. So that does include some of our larger conferences as well. But on the field side, we execute 60 plus events per year. Like I said, broken down between regional roadshows, exec programs, dinners, real high touch experiences, and then just like smaller virtual roundtables or smaller things that just sort of ad hoc that pop up. But we tend to think about the full buyer journey, big moments that are going to build awareness, and field events convert those big moments, that interest, into pipeline. So it's all about timing, messaging, and follow-up, like synced across teams, allow us to move and scale really quickly, be really agile. We're able to work with sales. We're able to work with marketing. Our CS teams understand where there's an opportunity and where we need to go and create those moments that matter. And then we're able to go and create those pretty quickly with field events, as opposed to like large conferences or large events that take months and months of planning. We can spin things up pretty quickly within weeks. Sometimes, event marketers don't like to hear this. Like sometimes 1 to 2 weeks, we'd prefer, a little bit more notice, but we can be really agile. And working with your team, the Splash team, we're able to be even more agile because we're just so armed with the right tools.
I love to hear that. It's an honor to play even a small role in your team's success. Okay. Well, I guess first question is like, how do you decide which event formats are going to work best, for your different objectives or your different audience segments when you are thinking about that full funnel, that breakdown of 60 events per year? How do you decide like how many of each event type is the right formula?
It's a great question. I mean, we have a budget. We start out with the beginning of the year. We take that budget, we sort of break it out by quarter. We look at the calendar first. So I think a lot of folks probably listening to this can appreciate that, first quarter, the beginning of the year, and then sort of the fall are sort of the busiest times. So we kind of stack things at the beginning of the year and then sort of in the fall. Summer is always it's a slower time for events. The holiday season is a little bit smaller. So we map out by the calendar year when we know we have the big money, pockets of money that we have available to use. That's when we know our events are going to be most successful. And then we match format to intent. So we think about execs. We found that like really super curated lunches have worked really well with that group. With sort of the enterprise mid-market, we've learned that roundtables tend to be really successful. So for us, we have to decide if we're educating, are we accelerating, are we expanding? We have to sort of look at the goal of what we're trying to achieve and then work backwards from there. And we do say no a lot too. So I think that's something that marketers and event marketers in general have to think about, is that events must align to this go-to-market goal that you're working towards. So we work really closely with our sales and marketing, are very closely aligned within the revenue org. Lots and lots of touch bases, lots of meetings, lots of stakeholders are constantly looking at, sales pipeline, marketing pipeline, and we're evaluating what needs to be done and when, so that we can hit those goals for the marketing and for the sales work.
Yeah. First of all, I must agree. Sometimes you do have to say no. And I think there's definitely an art to learning how to say, that's not going to align with our current objectives. But I feel like you probably could teach a masterclass on like how to redirect that no into either a deeper understanding of what the current objectives are and how to stay aligned to those, and or saying like, no, not right now. Here's what we're focused on, but we can make this a priority later. So can you speak a little bit more to just how you juggle those competing priorities? Because I'm sure depending on the stakeholder, the internal stakeholder that you're working with, they're going to say, well, this is the most important thing to my team right now. And I'm just like curious what some of the pro tips you might have for people struggling also to navigate competing priorities. Like, what you would offer them as advice when they're in conversations, when they have maybe their sales leader, asking for one thing, and maybe a customer success leader asking for another thing, and maybe your direct leader within marketing is saying, nope, we actually have to focus on this major objective. It's not always easy to do.
No, that is not easy at all. I would say we have evolved so much. And one of the things that I can just not say enough, because it's been said to me so many times within my work, is events must tie to pipeline. So if you use that as your North Star, that events must tie to pipeline, you're able to go from event execution to business ownership. So not only does it have to tie to pipeline, but if sales doesn't see the value, or if you have some folks on the sales org that are questioning, certain objectives that you're working towards, reconsider. That's the number one thing I can offer is tie to pipeline, and you can't ever go wrong, because that is the one metric that whether it's your COO, your CRO, your CMO, or your board, they are not going to deny the fact that if you are tying your event strategy to pipeline, they'll never question any decision you make. I think a lot of organizations tend to struggle with, how do you plan? Do you plan around quarters like we do at Gainsight? Do you plan around a year-long theme? Some companies, they set one theme for the year and they plan all their events around that one year. For us, quarterly works well. For others, planning one theme for the year works well. But by being a little bit more agile and planning by quarter, yes, it does get a little bit chaotic at times, but it allows us to plan around sales priorities, campaigns, our pipeline goals. We're able to align with launches, vertical plays, other things that are happening in the business so that we can pair those key moments with maximum impact. So at Gainsight, for example, we've had a couple of acquisitions. So you might have heard about our Staircase AI acquisition, more recently, our SkillDrar acquisition. So as we are making these big moves within the company, marketing and events also have to be pretty agile to move so that we are aligning with the business and the objectives as they come up, and that we're making the most maximum impact. So again, we're taking advantage of some of these opportunities around acquisitions or new launches, product launches, but it's all coming back to pipeline. And we have weekly meetings. There are monthly council meetings. We're in so many different touch bases with the revenue org to make sure that the pipeline is where it needs to be. And so that we're planning these events to ensure that we're on pace with our spend, our budget, and the impact that we need to make.
I love that. So this is the perfect segue. I feel like every response you give me, I'm like, perfect. This is exactly where I want to take the conversation. But I would love to hear from you about a specific success story. You've talked a lot about the amazing impact that you're able to have on the business. So would love to hear about a program that's delivered exceptional results. And if you could just walk us through what the initial goal was, your target audience, and any details you can share around the execution strategy and some of those concrete results to pipeline or revenue that you were able to generate.
So I was looking at all of our last year results and everything that we've gone through. And one of the roadshows that has been sort of one of our shining stars that we've been working on the past couple of years are these regional roadshows. And like I said, we heavy load the front half of the year so that we can see the result later in the year. So last year, right about this time, we were wrapping up our All Stars tour, which was an 8-city roadshow tour across the United States. And it was really unique in a lot of ways. First, the venues were super unique. So we went to major baseball fields, NFL stadiums. So we were at the Dallas Cowboys. We went to their stadium. We were at the Boston Red Sox. We went to some pretty iconic stadiums, and we hosted our All-Stars tour. And so it gave an opportunity for folks to have something really interesting. Like if you're a huge fan, you're a local sports, you want to cheer your local team. It gave you the opportunity to be invited and get like a behind the scenes tour that you wouldn't typically see of those event stadiums. So in some stadiums, they did like locker room tours, behind the scenes, training rooms, just all sorts of stuff that like had extra wow factor impact. But what was really cool that we thought about the All Stars tour was it was a way to align multi-product audiences bring them together in one event. So one of the things that we challenge ourselves with is we are a multi-product company. We have multiple products that we are selling to multiple personas. And so what we needed to do to scale this event, we didn't have budget to do the XYZ product roadshow and then the ABC product roadshow and then the, other roadshow. We had to figure out, how do we bring all of those personas together at one event and deliver content that will be relevant and impactful. And so the Team All-Stars concept allowed us to set up a hub page with all of our various cities of where we're going, dates, times, things like that. And then when you signed up, you selected what team you're going to be. So if you're on our CS team for enterprise, you're an enterprise CS prospect or customer, you were signing up, and you didn't know this, but on the back end, we were assigning you. Right. You're going to this team. If you're a mid-market CS prospect or customer, we were assigning you to that team based on the questions we were asking upon registration. Same goes for our education and community product. If you were interested in our education or community product, we assigned you to that team in the background. So when you arrived on site and you showed up, we said, hey, thank you so much for joining us. You can go have a seat at that team table over there. And then everyone at that table was part of the same team. So they were there to learn. They were there for a roundtable. They were there to learn the same customer stories. They were there to meet their peers. They were all similar sized companies with the same challenges. So we were able to scale and hit so many personas, so many different folks in one event. That event generated over 150 AQLs, which was huge for us, and generating that through the pipeline to source revenue.
Wow. That is, so just for, in case anyone doesn't use AQL, just define that really quickly for us.
AQL is our first interest. It's your first expressed interest, AQL. And then from there, it goes through the pipeline for us, and SQL is an opportunity. So you have to go through the marketing funnel, AQL through to SQL. So by generating over 150 AQLs, we were setting up our SDR and our sales team in a good position to work those leads to progress them through the sales funnel to opportunity creation. And we're still seeing tons of things come through from the All-Stars Tour because, as you know, and this is one thing you have to report on as an event marketer, you do not see results the next day. These things have to mature. They have to take time. They have to work through the funnel. So we're still seeing things pop up today from an event that was done, nearly a year ago.
That is phenomenal. I'm curious, just as you spoke to, how have you gone about setting expectations internally for when you might see results? To your point, you're not going to see all of your ROI manifest in the first 24 hours or even the first week, maybe even the first month post-event. So what does your reporting process or cadence look like? How frequently are you checking back on the results and then reporting to your team or other stakeholders internally? And have you ever faced any pushback, maybe from leadership saying hey, when are we going to see the results, or we haven't seen results yet? How do you navigate a situation like that?
All the time. I mean, that's the $1 million question, right? Our job has to be continually being able to educate the entire organization that these things need time to mature. They need time to work their way through the funnel. 6 months is a good time frame. I know that sounds like an eternity, but you really need to give yourself time for these events to mature and work their way through the funnel. Because if you're looking to source new opportunities from events, that is a long process. Influence, again, great, because you have these mid-stage open opportunities. You can kind of see those convert a little bit faster if you're working on solely looking at influence, which a lot of companies do, and we still do. Those you can see sometimes 6-8 weeks. So you have a little bit of a shorter timeline if you want to report on influence. But if you're focusing on source pipeline, that's going to take a good 6 months. So we usually set up dashboards with all of our campaigns, and then we monitor those dashboards, and we'll see the dashboards slowly tick up and up as time progresses. And like I said, the most interesting thing that we see at Gainsight is we will do an event, and this isn't just events, this is our entire marketing experience, whether it be a webinar or some content. We see these things come in 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, 18 months later, we'll still be seeing results come in. So it's still a difficult thing to navigate and to report on. We keep one master Google sheet that we kind of log everything in. We tick off the dashboards, we keep updating the Google Sheet, but find yourself a way to pick one sort of North Star. This is where we're going to log everything and figure out what your metrics are. Sometimes you want to log all of them, AQLs. You want to log influence pipeline, source pipeline, and just keep a sheet. So then when someone, your CEO, your CMO, whoever it is, comes and says, okay, it's budgeting time, we need to figure out what was the impact on events last year, you can pull up that sheet and you can look at all of your events and you can see at a certain point of time, this is what it's generated.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice and helpful to hear that longer time frame for measuring results it's totally normal and necessary. So I am curious, Vanessa, how your approach to field and or partner marketing, how has that evolved since you've been in your role, if at all? And what lessons have you learned along the way about scaling these programs successfully?
Yeah, for us, we've used some data that has taught us a lot about what events work well and how our approach has evolved. So like I said before, we've kind of gone from just execution to business ownership and tying everything back to pipeline. But some of these smaller, repeatable formats are having a bigger impact for us. And so it's also about the right people at the right moment. I know a lot of people say that across a lot of different marketing functions, but for us, if we are able to figure out an event format that works, for us, it's the roadshows, it's the breakfast and lunches, it's the dinners. Those are the ones that we are just cranking out all the time. Those have been really successful because we've learned so much on how to evolve and how to make it. Midday works, for example. A midday format for a lunch works really well. Or sometimes in some cities, breakfast works really well. We know in San Francisco, we have better luck with lunch than with breakfast. In New York, we have better luck with breakfast than lunch. So we've learned in different geos where things work best. We know what formats work best for us. We have data that we can constantly go back to on we know this is going to perform better than this. This is what we're really good at. This is what our company is suited for. Because when you do a lot of events, you need to make sure you have people to support the events. I think anyone knows that when you're doing an event, sometimes the hardest part isn't just the logistics. It's who's going to support it? Who's going to be our thought leader? Who's going to help be the anchor for this event? So knowing where and what personalities and people within the company can support those are all learnings for us that we've had that allow us to be able to crank out these roadshows, these breakfasts, these lunches, these roundtables, and being able to trust that we know pretty much how the outcome is going to sort out in the end.
I think that's super fair. And what I'm hearing is look at the data and, you don't have to just make these strategic decisions in a vacuum with a blindfold on. There are going to be indicators that you can look to and predict how successful you're going to be.
And surveys. We use a lot of our post-event emails that we'll send out after an event. We always include a survey and we always get great feedback from those surveys on things that we can use to improve for the future. So that's very good sort of first party data that's helped us pivot and sort of make decisions on what we need to do in the future.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you another brief kind of follow-up question because I feel like I get this question a lot is related to the surveys because I hear a lot of people saying, well, we send out the survey, but no one's, responding. No one's engaging. I'm curious if you have any little tricks up your sleeve that you use to get people to engage with the surveys. Is it about timeliness of when you're sending it? Is there a secret magic length or number of questions? How do you get people to engage with those surveys and get that really rich first party kind of qualitative feedback?
It's all kind of all in the above what you just said. So timeliness, we usually send it out same day or next day. We usually include some pictures. Folks who attend these events, they just like to see the photos. So include photos of the events that happened in that email and also include all of the attendees' contact information. If you're doing smaller field events, that's one thing we've learned that folks love. In your industry that you work in, allow something like that. Include LinkedIn profiles of everyone who attended or include email addresses because what you want is that conversation to continue after the event. The other thing that we didn't touch on is great, you did the event, we're done. You have to be able to continue that momentum. So connecting those folks, maybe bringing them back together. And then we like to throw that survey link at the bottom after that. Sometimes we offer up, Gainsight's written a lot of books. We have a lot of books on different products that we sell. And so sometimes we say, here's a link, fill out the survey. We'll send you a free copy of this book. That tends to get a lot of feedback. We kind of fall back on our customer success roots with sort of like an MPS survey format of, would you recommend this to a friend? And then from there, the questions are, what would you do different? What did you like? What did you not like? How did you like the format? Did you feel that you got value out of this? Were you with your peers? And people who become really invested in your brand, you're just creating such strong brand advocates with events. You start to see that survey response rate just tick up a bit more because you're just creating these really strong experiences that people feel so connected to.
Yeah, I love that. That's really helpful to hear how you kind of approach the post-event initial follow-up strategy, at least. So as we're kind of wrapping up here, I have a couple final questions for you. One is, because one of the things, as I said, that you inspire me the most about is just like how you are achieving event-led growth at scale, going from kind of sporadic one-off events to a really cohesive strategy that's tied to business objectives might feel really daunting. And I'm just curious if you have any advice for people who are in that phase, looking to go from like no real strategy to at least some basic foundations, refine over time. What would you say are some of those first steps that they should take to get a strategy like you have in place for your organization going for their team?
Yeah. I mean, I've been in a variety of companies where I've had to do, we haven't had large event strategies, or the company is a much earlier stage company. And the one thing that's always served me really well is building that relationship with sales. If you can build that relationship with the sales organization, it doesn't have to be the sales leader. You don't have to start at the very top. Build relationships with the account owners, the AEs, your customer account managers. Find some advocates, find that 1 or 2 or 3 salespeople who have used events to close big deals. Latch on to them, become friends with them, build those relationships, create that FOMO effect, and then work your way through the sales org. Because if you're able to show the value that you're building, even if it's just with one person, and then that sort of creates buzz, and then everyone else is like, well, why aren't I getting what they're getting? They just got an event in Chicago. I want an event in New York. You can create that FOMO effect. And by building that relationship with sales and then throughout the revenue organization, and then also just aligning very closely with marketing. I guess the answer to your question is it's all about relationships. You need to really have strong relationships within sales and marketing, within the entire go-to-market revenue organization, because events, it's a lot of money on that. When you're looking at that budget sheet, events take up sometimes a large chunk of money. So being able to build those relationships, show the value, starting to report small, build out your reporting as you can, but don't focus on turnout, focus on outcomes. And so you don't have to have tons of events that generate tons and tons of AQLs or millions of dollars in pipelines. Sometimes the best events have 10 people, as long as it is the right 10 people. And so that's something that by leveraging that relationship with sales, you're going to get the right 10 people because you're going to hear where their needs are, and then you can be a partner to help support their goals.
I love that. Oh my gosh, Emily, you're such a pro. You're such an expert in this field. My last question for you is, what excites you? What's exciting to you when you think about the role of events today within a go-to-market strategy, your role specifically? Like, what is exciting to you about being in this field now, being in the role now, and what do you see on the horizon? I don't imagine, at least I hope you're not going to be switching fields anytime soon, because I feel like your brain power is so needed here. But yeah, what is exciting to you about all of this?
Yeah, I think I'm a lifer. I don't know. I didn't, like none of us started when we were little kids and been like, oh, this is what I'm going to do and grow up.
Right.
But no, I mean, obviously AI excites me. The one thing that I can say is like, I know event marketers in this space, we're not going to be replaced by AI because people need to be here to do the work. But AI is going to make our job easier and more scalable. So what I'm excited about is building attendee lists for events is just the thing I don't like it. I don't like having to build or enrich lists and have to, run a gazillion reports and do this and do that. And I do think AI is going to revolutionize how we are able to run those reports, find out who those right people are at the right time that we need to invite. And so I'm super excited about our job getting a little bit easier so that we're going to be able to focus on the right people, getting them there. Our job's going to be easier. We're going to have more time for the fun stuff. At Gainsight, one of our values is childlike joy. So all these events that we do, we want to create these childlike joy moments that connect people because it builds connection, it builds excitement, it builds energy. It's going to give us more time to focus on that stuff that we can be creative and really dig into. And AI is going to be able to relieve us on some of those manual administrative tasks that have taken so long historically over time.
I feel like you stole the thoughts from my brain. I couldn't agree more. That's exactly one of the use cases I'm most excited to see a lift from or influence from with AI. So yeah, absolutely. We won't be replaced. We cannot be replaced. And events in general, I think will only become more and more important to every single organization's go-to-market strategy because people are going to be looking for those authentic moments to engage with your brand. And there's really no better channel to do that.
I think this industry is going to grow as AI grows because it's going to make it easier for us to connect in person and people want those authentic connections. I mean, we just came off of our Pulse conference in Las Vegas and the energy was just palpable of people being able to connect physically, see each other. So we're really excited about the future of events. And I think it's going to be a strong future. And hopefully we'll all have a little more free time. I don't know. Maybe I'm taking it a little too far there. I don't think free time is anyone that anyone has, but I'm just hoping that we'll be able to focus on more of the things that we need to focus on. And some of those other things will be much easier to manage.
Yeah. Cheers to that. Cheers to the future of event marketing, field marketing, events within the broader go-to-market strategy. Thank you so much for your time today, Emily. Like I said, I could pick your brain for hours and hours. So you've been so generous with us today. For everyone tuned in, I am certain you got the major gems that Emily dropped. Emily, what's one way that people can follow along your journey or stay in touch with you if they're curious and just want to continue to learn from you or cheer you on from the sidelines?
Oh my gosh. I guess LinkedIn. I don't know. I'm not a big one out there posting everything. We are going to be doing some cool stuff this year, some roadshow things, some big events that we're working on. So I guess stay tuned. There's some exciting things coming in the future from Gainsight and the team here.
I have no doubts about that. I, for one, am going to definitely stay close to you because, like I said, I'm just always learning from you. So thank you so much today. Folks, I hope you enjoyed this little peek behind the curtains as Emily has shared how Gainsight turns events into a growth engine, a serious one at that. And until next time, take care.
Thank you.
Thanks, Emily.
Thank you for listening to Checked In. To get connected and learn more, visit splashthat.com. And don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.